Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope everything is good and great and wonderful. It is Christmas Eve here, and if you've watched the channel for any amount of time, you probably are aware that I don't necessarily identify with the religious version of this holiday, but let's be honest. This holiday is very not about religion anymore. It's just about spending fun times with family and friends and showing appreciation for each other. And so I hope that whatever it is that you do on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, that you get to spend time with your family and friends and just people who are important to you know that you care about them. This is going to be a weird set of days for me. I get to spend a little bit of time with M's family, who I've met very few of them. So this will be the first time meeting a whole bunch of new family members for me, and I'm excited about that. But it also makes me think back to traditions when I was a kid. Growing up, Christmas was at my house. My mom did Christmas completely, dinner, all that at our house. So everybody came to my mom's house. And I had essentially one aunt and uncle that I was familiar with. I had other aunts and uncles, but for whatever reason, they were all distant. I knew them cursorily, right? They didn't necessarily show up at Christmas. So because my mom did all the Christmas stuff at her house, her sister, my Aunt Gnome, her real name was Naomi, but I couldn't say it, so I called her Gnome, and we always just called her Aunt Gnome. Aunt Gnome would like to do Christmas Eve dinner at her house. And in my house growing up, my mom she put up the Christmas tree in like November, before Thanksgiving, and she started putting packages under the tree immediately. So there was always packages, just building throughout the month of December. And that got me excited. We always had a live tree. That got me excited. But for some reason, going to Aunt Gnome's house on Christmas Eve, she always had like a tiny tree, like just a 3-foot tree on a table. She never really had a full-blown Christmas tree that I can remember. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know for many years she just had a little one because her living room was pretty tight. So she had a little sewing table or something with a tree on it, and then there would just be piles of packages and all kinds of fun paper. And for some reason, going to her house on Christmas Eve was like the realization that Christmas was happening, right? Seeing all of her paper, all of her gifts wrapped, wondering which ones were for me because I don't remember if maybe she didn't use name tags or something, but it was always like, oh, I wonder what Aunt Gnome got me, because she always got me fun stuff, right? For some reason, that night at my aunt's house having Christmas Eve dinner was always like the kickoff that was really exciting for Christmas. And, I grew up and I moved on with my life, and I would go over there occasionally on Christmas Eve if I got invited, but once I had my own family, it became very difficult to get everybody in that house. Their house was super tiny, and there would be me and my family, my kids, her daughter and her kids and their girlfriends, and my aunt and uncle and my mom and dad. Like it was a whole lot. My sister. Sometimes my niece. It was really difficult to get everybody in the house, and so at some point that tradition just kind of waned. And as my children got older, we started doing Christmas Eve dinner at their aunt's house. My ex's brother's house, and his wife. We would go there for Christmas Eve dinner, and that was always really fun because it was, the girls were, all the kids were 4 years apart, so it was like, they spanned 12 years or whatever that is. But they always liked to play together, so we would go over there for Christmas Eve dinner and get ready for the, tradition. When my kids were younger, especially my oldest, she had a very hard time falling asleep. So when she was younger, we used to just drive around and look at Christmas lights on Christmas Eve until she fell asleep. And that tradition has continued ever since. In fact, this last weekend, if you saw the solstice tooth picture, you know that me and my kids, we went looking at lights before solstice night. So that was a tradition that we've carried on forever. And I can remember definitely sometimes traveling with my mom to go look at Christmas lights. I don't think we did it on Christmas Eve night. I think, if from what I remember, we would go to my aunt's house and then just come home and get ready for bed. But with my kids, it was a tradition to drive around and look at lights until they fell asleep. And because at my house, it was a little different. We didn't put presents out until that night, so I didn't get to wrap them until that night. And it was a long night of wrapping. But Christmas Eve, in some ways, was always a little bit more wholesome than Christmas Day itself. Christmas Day would be quite chaotic. With the amount of people that were involved. But Christmas Eve was always a little bit tighter knit, a little bit more of just close family and dinner, and it was always exciting. So I'm excited to spend some time with M's family over the next couple of days. It ought to be rewarding. Sorry, I got lost in my thoughts there. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking and commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I will see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is draconian. It is an adjective meaning strict, mean-spirited, excessively harsh, cruel, punishment or restriction meant to cause misery to those receiving it. Ophelia was distraught over the draconian way that her father forced her to stay with her chaperone throughout their vacation on the Greek Isles. Draconian. D-R-A-C-O-N-I-A-N. The root of that is, like, is that like dragon? Like dragonish? I don't understand the root of that word.